system informed him that his ability, observation, had been activated as a reward, along with an extra reward of a full year's worth of magic power. Surprised by the amount of power, he grew curious about what observation could do. While lost in thought, Theo didn't notice someone approaching from above. Suddenly, a figure landed on the stage with a loud crash, breaking the floor and leaving Theo stunned. As the dust settled, Theo saw with dread that it was Julius Ragnar, the demon dragon and leader of the white armored cavalry. Panic surged through Theo as he recognized Julius and wondered how long he'd been watching. The knights in the audience were equally shocked, exclaiming in amazement as they identified Julius as one of the 9 dragons and the leader of the white armored cavalry. Meanwhile, Evelyn, more annoyed than surprised, mumbled about how his dramatic entrance had ruined the floor and wished he'd entered more gracefully. Standing face to face with one of the most powerful figures on the continent, Theo's panic intensified as Julius drew closer, his fierce glare freezing Theo in terror. Then, to Theo's surprise, Julius broke into a booming laugh. With a friendly pat on Theo's back, he praised him, saying the duel had been thrilling and impressive, leaving Theo even more confused. Julius continued, expressing his surprise at Theo's abilities. He joked about whether the student had truly outdone the teacher, but acknowledged it might sound disrespectful, considering Theo had defeated Rendine. Julius shrugged, laughing it off, remarking that someone like Rendine might have had it coming. With enthusiasm, Julius grabbed Theo's shoulder, offering him a position in the white armored cavalry. Theo was shocked by the offer, while Evelyn watched with a knowing smile. The knights were stunned. They couldn't believe the Ragnar fool was being recruited into the elite white armored cavalry. Even with Theo's victory, they didn't think it warranted such an honor. Nearby, Remington turned to a fellow knight, asking if there had ever been a case where an apprentice swordsman, especially one who hadn't completed the awakening ceremony, had been scouted. After thinking it over, the man replied he'd never heard of it. Remington agreed, finding it unlikely as it was risky to recruit someone whose mana hall was still sealed. Even if their swordsmanship was excellent, they might lack magical power, making them a questionable choice. Remington couldn't understand how even someone like Julius could see such potential in Theo. To everyone's surprise, Theo declined Julius's offer. He looked at Julius seriously, leaving the commander speechless. Remington, Evelyn, and the other knights watching were equally baffled, unable to understand why Theo would turn down such an opportunity. The entire training ground fell silent as they all looked at the 2 figures on the stage. In the following days, word of Theo's actions spread quickly. People were shocked that the so-called fool had defeated his own teacher. Many assumed Rendine must have been weak for this to happen. What surprised people even more was that Julius Ragnar, the demon dragon himself, had tried to recruit Theo after seeing the duel, only for Theo to refuse because he felt his skills weren't enough yet. Word spread that Theo was a humble Ragnar, a rare trait that left many astonished. Meanwhile, at Chumia Palace, Amal Ragnar, the Lady of Chimera and Mother of Action, expressed her frustration, saying things had gotten complicated and that she couldn't believe Theo had killed Rendine. Her brother calmly reassured her, pointing out that Rendine had been chosen as Theo's teacher due to his lack of skill. Amal agreed, stating that Rendine's death didn't matter to them. However, her real worry was that Julius, the demon dragon, had reached out to Theo, and to make matters worse, Evelyn had apparently ordered it. This meant they couldn't interfere by assigning Theo a new teacher. Amal explained that if Theo started drawing attention, it would become much harder to take control of Rose Palace. At that moment, the door opened and Action entered, asking what she meant by standing out. Confidently, he assured his mother that the clan wouldn't take an interest in Theo, so their plans could proceed as usual. Amal asked Action if he understood that the best way to secure Rose Palace without upsetting the clan leader was for Theo to stay powerless. Action reassured her, insisting that Theo was still powerless and there was no way he had changed much. He also pointed out that Evelyn and Julius had always been attracted to underdogs. Ed, however, firmly warned Action against making hasty moves. Ignoring the warning, Action declared that since his mother and uncle were so worried, he'd play with Theo a little to remind him of his place. The next day at the training ground, Evelyn praised Theo for his progress. He thanked her, commenting on how much better it was to learn from a proper teacher like her. Evelyn responded that it would have been even better if he had joined the White Armored Cavalry and asked him why he had turned down the offer. Theo admitted to himself that he did have some regrets, especially since joining the cavalry had been his dream in his past life. However, joining now would limit him too soon. He thought about the privileges granted to the top performer of the awakening ceremony, which he saw as a greater opportunity than joining the cavalry. He told Evelyn he didn't want special treatment and still didn't feel ready, though he appreciated her training for the ceremony. Evelyn accepted his answer and mentioned that Commander Julius would likely be disappointed. Curious about Evelyn, Theo activated his observation ability. He saw that she was 24 years old, had once been deputy commander of the White Armored Cavalry, and was a high-ranked swordsman. Her status showed that she admired his humility and character, felt energized by teaching him, and missed the cavalry. Theo smiled, realizing how useful his observation ability was, and felt pleased to see Evelyn was genuinely happy to teach him. Just then, a young man approached, politely introducing himself as Sildria from the Southern Inspection Post. He explained that he needed to speak with Theo. Confused, Theo noticed that Sil looked rather intimidating, so he used observation again. The system revealed that Sildria was 17 years old, held the title of Dun of the Southern Inspection Post, and was also an apprentice swordsman. Sil's rank was loyalty, and his status showed strong admiration for Theo and a desire to spar with him, which left Theo surprised. He couldn't believe that someone so serious was eager to spar with him. At that moment, the system displayed Theo's final tutorial quest to shed the title Ragnar's Fool, with a completion goal of 100%. It also showed he had already reached 28%. Sil then admitted that he wanted to follow Theo, acknowledging he had ignored him in the past. He also mentioned that the title Ragnar's Fool suited Theo, which made Theo angry as he instinctively lifted his sword. But before Theo could react further, Sil sincerely explained that he had seen Theo training every morning, working harder than anyone else, and that this effort had led to Theo's impressive growth, something Sil had witnessed firsthand. Remembering Theo's defeat of Rendan and recruitment by Julius, Sil announced that Theo had become his role model. Sil admitted that he'd once been called the Fool of the Southern Inspection Post, a title that nearly made him lose all hope in himself. But after watching Theo, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Bowing deeply, he held his sword above his head and respectfully asked Theo for a chance to spar. Typically, Theo would have been cautious about someone's intentions, but using his observation skill confirmed Sil's sincerity. Though unexpected, Theo understood that his recent achievements, defeating Rendan and attracting the attention of Julius, might make him a target for those with something to prove. However, what surprised him was the idea that some might genuinely want to follow him. At least among people like Sil, Theo thought, the pride associated with the Ragnar family name still held weight. As he worked to reach his goal of becoming head of the Ragnar clan, Theo knew he would eventually need followers to support him. His final tutorial mission, shed the title of Ragnar's Fool, was directly connected to this. This was a reputation he'd never managed to shake in his past life. But with new opportunities now, Theo was determined to put it behind him. Looking to Evelyn, he asked for a moment to spar. She gave a nod and encouraged him to demonstrate his skills proudly. Lifting his sword, Theo formally introduced himself as Theo Ragnar, apprentice of Rose Palace, and proudly named Evelyn Narvel as his mentor. Evelyn's expression softened with pride. Sil then introduced himself as Sildria, also an apprentice swordsman, representing the Southern Inspection Post and practicing Cure Clan swordsmanship, specializing in swift strikes. With introductions made, they agreed to a fair spar. Sybil leaped forward, making the first move, but Theo easily deflected it. Sybil was taken aback by Theo's speed, noting how different the reality was from the Fool title Theo had once held. As Sybil's quick strikes continued, Theo met them all effortlessly. Thinking back, Theo remembered a time when he would have struggled against even a few attacks. With a powerful swing, he sent Sybil sprawling, the move overwhelming him. Despite the impact, Sybil only grinned through the pain, acknowledging his defeat and thanking Theo for the valuable experience. Theo raised his sword, signaling the end of the spar, and commended Sybil for a well-fought match. Glancing at his reflection in the blade, he wondered if he could apply his observation ability on himself. Intrigued, he activated it, and to his surprise, a status screen appeared reading, "Observing Theo Ragnar." He saw that his title still showed Ragnar's Fool, and his skill list included Player Ragnar Observation, alongside 4 talents marked Access Denied. His status reflected his strong ambition for the upcoming Awakening ceremony. His level showed as 1, and his stats included Strength 13, Dexterity 14, Vitality 12, Magic Power 190, Intelligence 11, and Luck at -49. A prompt explained that his stats were now measurable. with all future attributes shown as numerical values. Noticing his high magic power was thanks to past experiences and a dragon heart. Theo was pleased but puzzled by his negative luck stat, wondering if a curse was at play. After deactivating his skill, Theo resolved to find a way to raise his luck score. Hearing footsteps behind him, he turned to see a small group observing him. Evelyn noted that, despite Rendon's weaknesses, his mid-rank status and Theo's defeat of him, plus Julius's approval, would draw people's envy or admiration. The knights behind Theo seemed to lean toward the latter. They had watched the sparring match between Theo and Sybil, confirming rumors about Theo's skill. Some even wondered if they themselves could have handled Theo's techniques. One of them, Alan, wished to spar but hesitated to speak up. Theo used his observation skill and learned Alan was 19 years old, held the title Nan Family Pillar, and was a low-ranked swordsman. His talent was passion and determination, and his current status showed eagerness to spar with Theo. With a sigh, Theo invited Alan to step forward, surprising him. Alan stammered in response, unsure if Theo already knew him, but Theo simply suggested they spar. Thrilled, Alan raised his sword and introduced himself formally as the third son of Viscount Nan, a practitioner of double ascension swordsmanship. Theo introduced himself in return, and they both charged at each other, their swords clashing in the center. Theo noticed his basic swordsmanship skill advancing. Alan quickly withdrew his sword to gain momentum and swung it toward Theo, almost striking his neck. Theo managed to block the blow just in time, deflecting Alan's attack, and felt his changing heart swordsmanship proficiency improve. Shocked by Theo's skill, Alan admitted his loss. The system indicated that Alan's approval had raised Theo's luck by 1 point. Theo wondered if earning others' respect might also increase his luck, perhaps even affecting his reputation. Additionally, the system revealed he'd earned experience points. With determination, he readied his sword for the next opponent, facing one knight after another and gaining each one's approval. Each victory added another point to his luck. Bennett Romo, Eric Morn, and more joined the ranks of those who respected him, boosting his luck even further. After defeating several knights, Theo paused to catch his breath, asking if anyone else wanted a match. When no one stepped forward, he opened his status window. Despite having faced many, his quest progress had only risen by 1%, leaving him puzzled. He began to suspect he'd need to earn respect from more formidable challengers, or those who still doubted him to see real progress. Just then, a voice behind him remarked on his exhaustion, asking if he'd manage. Theo replied that he'd rest if necessary, but was fine for now. Stepping forward, the man introduced himself as Remington Nerio, a member of the elite Four Hounds of the North, and proposed a spar. Theo was taken aback. The Four Hounds were prestigious warriors of the Ragnar clan, consisting of Holkus Lank, Ray Ragnar, Action Ragnar of Chemia Palace, and Remington. Remington formally introduced himself, explaining that he'd come early to witness Theo's swordsmanship before the awakening ceremony. Curious, Theo activated his observation ability and saw that Remington, 17 years old, held the title of Deputy Head of Nerio and was known as the Silver Lion, one of the Four Hounds. His skills included sword prodigy, heightened senses, and unwavering diligence. His status showed a genuine surprise to find an unexpected rival. Raising his sword, Remington thanked Theo and expressed his wish to test his own skills against him. Theo lifted his sword, introducing himself as the 31st son of the Great Northern Guardian, Kyle Ragnar, and an apprentice swordsman about to undergo the awakening ceremony. He felt honored to stand before Remington, the renowned swordmaster he'd long admired. Theo conveyed his gratitude, acknowledging the privilege of crossing swords with the deputy clan head of Nerio. Remington responded warmly, expressing his excitement for their duel. As they readied themselves, Theo wondered if his skills could match someone of Remington's caliber, one of the Four Hounds of the North. Their blades collided, echoing through the surroundings as their duel began. The system displayed a 1% progress on Theo's tutorial quest. Then, with a powerful clash, one sword shattered, dropping broken pieces to the ground. Theo's sword had snapped. The onlookers were stunned, many doubting their young master's abilities. Sybil was shocked, but Manuel said the outcome was predictable, given Theo's opponent. However, Sybil commended Theo's spirit. In an unexpected twist, Remington admitted defeat, citing his exhaustion and worn blade as reasons for yielding. Theo humbly acknowledged that, on a real battlefield, his loss would have been definite. Remington, smiling, shook Theo's hand and expressed hope for a more conclusive duel next time. The knights were taken aback by Remington's acknowledgement of Theo. Manuel, in disbelief, looked on as Sil proudly stated that Theo was unlike others. Meanwhile, Theo's quest progress rose to 35%. Although Theo admired Remington's abilities, he knew there was still much to learn. He felt stronger, but saw that Remington's skill was unmatched. Despite his disappointment that the duel ended quickly, Theo felt he had made gains. His luck increased by 10 points, his reputation improved, but his quest progress hadn't advanced as hoped. He began strategizing ways to achieve greater recognition. Then Remington extended an invitation to Theo to join the Scaled Dragon Society. Sil was stunned, aware of the society's exclusivity and high standards. Theo, surprised, asked if he truly belonged in such a prestigious group, but Remington reassured him, emphasizing that Theo was more than qualified. The Scaled Dragon Society, Remington explained, was a group of peers preparing for the awakening ceremony. Curious, Sil asked why Theo was chosen, while Bennett looked on in amazement. Theo knew that the Scaled Dragon Society wasn't exactly friendly toward him, but he saw it as an opportunity to progress in his quest and gather information on influential circles. With this in mind, he accepted Remington's offer, thanking him. With a firm handshake, Remington informed Theo that the Society's next meeting would be in 2 weeks. Evelyn watched silently from the sidelines, deep in thought. Back at Rose Palace, Cecilia entered Theo's room with several maids in tow. Startled, Theo asked what was going on, and his mother, thrilled, explained that she'd heard of his invitation to the Scaled Dragon Society. She elaborated on the Society's reputation, noting that his attire and demeanor would be scrutinized. As she had once been an actress, Cecilia eagerly prepared Theo to make a suitable impression. Cecilia acknowledged the challenges they had faced as part of the Ragnar clan, hinting at the difficulties Theo endured due to his background. Embracing him, she expressed confidence in his abilities. Moved by her encouragement, Theo assured her there was no need for worry. Those in the room watched the emotional moment between mother and son. 2 weeks later, on the night of the Scaled Dragon Society banquet, Remington waited outside Rose Palace. He was taken aback by Theo's polished appearance as he stepped out. Remington, impressed, commented on Theo's transformation, but Theo only laughed, asking him to stop teasing. As they entered the carriage, Theo reflected on the physical changes he'd undergone over the past 2 weeks. He had grown stronger, with Remington regularly visiting him to train together, and they'd become close. Evelyn, who had been overseeing his training, often sighed, noting the demanding weeks, but remaining involved in his progress. During their ride, Remington asked if this was Theo's first formal banquet. Theo confirmed it was, and Remington reassured him, though he warned him about his friend Action, leaving Theo puzzled. Remington explained that Action could be unpredictable, but mentioned that Action himself had requested Theo's presence at the banquet. Theo, realizing Action's involvement, suspected challenges awaited, but was determined to navigate them. At Camellia Palace, Action, with a glass in hand, eagerly awaited Theo's arrival, viewing him as his new target. Moments later, the carriage halted, and Remington led Theo out. Upon arrival, Theo was reminded of the history surrounding the palace and its connection to past events involving his family. Remington mentioned that Action would greet him personally at the entrance, a rare honor. Although aware of Action's possible schemes, Theo resolved to confront the challenges head-on, ready to prove his strength and assert his place. Theo caught a faint blue light reflecting from his earrings. Glancing up, he saw a glowing sign in one of the rooms, sparking curiosity about a hidden quest within Camellia Palace. But before he could investigate, Remington shouted his name in alarm as something dropped from above with a loud explosion, leaving a cloud of dust. Emerging unscathed, Theo reassured Remington that it was only a sack of flour. Remington, fuming, glared upwards to see who the prankster was. Theo calmly dusted off his clothes, knowing that in the past he would have been covered in flour, but now he could dodge it easily. Briefly, he suspected Remington was in on the joke, but after using his observation skill, he confirmed Remington's confusion. Theo guessed that this was Action's doing. Sure enough, Action soon appeared, cheerfully asking if Theo liked his friendly greeting. Remington demanded an explanation, but Action dismissed it as harmless fun, calling it a playful welcome among brothers. Using his observation skill, Theo saw Action's title, Dark Tiger, along with his swordsmanship talents and unsettling traits like madness and psychopath. Action, viewing Theo as his next toy, seemed excited. Rather than reacting angrily, Theo thanked Action, throwing him off guard. Theo remarked that Action's welcome was appreciated as he was looking forward to the party. Recovering quickly, Action chuckled, saying it had been a while since he'd had this much fun. They soon entered the grand hall, where murmurs filled the air as guests exchanged confused looks, unsure why someone of Action's rank would invite Theo to the Scale Dragon Society. Watching Theo closely, they reluctantly admitted he seemed more composed than expected. Theo moved through the room with Remington, sipping wine, while whispers circulated, wondering if Action intended to mock Theo further. Embarrassed, Remington apologized, explaining that they weren't usually so hostile. Theo reassured him, saying he didn't mind and even appreciated the attention, leaving Remington puzzled. Theo smirked internally, knowing that all the gossip was part of his plan. The more they talked, the sweeter his victory would be later. Scanning the room, Theo noticed the blue light from earlier, marking a quest on the second floor. He wanted to approach it, but doing so openly would attract too much attention. For now, he decided to bide his time and continue observing. Just then, Action approached, asking if Theo was enjoying the event. Theo kept his cool and thanked him, following his plan to avoid confrontation. Feigning an apology, Action placed a hand on Theo's shoulder and asked if Theo would accept it. Before Theo could respond, Remington tried to intervene, but Theo cut him off, stating there was no need for apologies. He only remembered a warm greeting. Action was momentarily surprised, then laughed, clapping Theo on the back, commenting on how interesting Theo had become. The guests laughed, calling Theo Action's lapdog. Some even mocked Theo's lineage, saying an illegitimate child like him couldn't match the noble Trone family. Theo kept his composure, hiding his irritation. Their comments soon shifted to Remington, remarking on his own illegitimate status. This struck a nerve, leaving the room in an awkward silence. Sensing Remington's hurt, Theo decided to act. Addressing Action, he asked if he should introduce himself to his new friends. Grabbing a wine bottle, Theo approached the man who had insulted Remington. Realizing the tension, the man stammered, asking if he had said something wrong. Without warning, Theo smashed the bottle over the man's head, leaving him screaming and calling Theo a bastard. Theo responded with a swift kick, knocking him to the floor. Calmly, Theo questioned the man's use of the term bastard, saying he'd simply given him a friendly greeting. The other guests whispered in shock, questioning whether Theo was truly the imbecile they believed. Meanwhile, Theo's quest progress updated to 43%. Remington, stunned, wondered if Theo was acting for his sake. Theo, maintaining a cold demeanor, told the man he had extended his welcome. Stepping on his arm, Theo demanded a farewell, then broke the man's arm with a sharp motion. The sound of bones snapping filled the room as Theo's quest progress rose to 59%. As the man collapsed in pain, Theo asked the crowd if anyone else wanted to greet him. His progress ticked up to 66%. Guards quickly surrounded Theo, swords drawn, threatening him for attacking one of their own. Unfazed, Theo recognized the man as Ian Hanabi, a member of the influential Hanabi clan. Turning to the guards, Theo addressed them confidently, reminding them that his lineage granted him the right to defend his honor. He questioned if they, as mere retainers of a Ragnar Bannerman clan, dared to make such threats against him. The guards hesitated, realizing the implications. Theo was no ordinary member of Ragnar's lineage. Any disrespect to him could lead to severe consequences for their entire clan. One guard grasped the danger. Knowing Theo's rank now meant they should apologize. Before they could react, Theo commanded an attack, and a sword flashed, decapitating the guards who had threatened him. Shocked, the room fell silent, Theo's quest progress jumping to 70%. At that moment, Evan entered, acknowledging Theo and asking when he'd noticed her following. He replied calmly, saying he'd known but wasn't sure why she was there. Her presence reassured him, as it allowed him to take bold action without hesitation. The room held its breath as they exchanged knowing glances, setting the scene for what was to come.